What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode here, the Side Guys Football Forum. I'm one of your co-hosts on the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Tad the Side. And Tad, it's been a week off. I mean, we took the Thanksgiving week off to, spend some time with our families. Fortunately, it wasn't the case for you, but I'll let you get to that a little bit later here. But Thanksgiving was pretty nice to just, like I said, just take a step back. We try our best to obviously give as much information as we can each and every week. And I mean, guys, if you hit us up on social media, we definitely would have gotten to you over the Thanksgiving week, even though we didn't record any episodes, and we had you covered with some social media graphics. So, I mean, we still got some information, maybe not like through audio or video means, but we got you the information that you may have needed to help you make some decisions for those Thanksgiving games, the Black Friday game. I mean, the first time that has happened this year. And of course, your Sunday slate. And good God, today's Monday game has been absolutely horrendous.
Can they start flexing out these bad teams already? So why do I need to keep watching the Vikings, watching the Jets? Why?
This is torture. It's actually funny that you bring up the aspect of flexing. So Sunday Night Football, you got, I think, flexed out games starting in week 5. So they adjusted that. Otherwise, before it used to be the double-digit week. So it was a lot later. But Monday Night Football, they have started to allow flexing. So starting after this week, unfortunately, if I remember correctly, or it might have been this week too, but maybe they just didn't find another game who could do it, whatever. But Monday Night Football can flex out too. So yeah, if we have another potential dud of a game on the books, it could get flexed out potentially. But yeah, I remember it was only Sunday Night Football, and I remember it used to only be like after week 12. And then I think we just had so many dud games in a season where it was just like, no, we can't do this anymore. So I think the NFL changed the rule for Sunday Night Football for it to be like, I think it's either week 4 or week 5. That's when the flexing can start for Sunday Night Football. And they have now instituted Monday Night Football to have the flexing starting now. In it was either this game that potentially could have been flexed, or now it's going to start next weekend. But yeah, good God, it's not been a good game. If you're watching the game, then power to you. You must be a Bears or Vikings fan, or maybe you have a glimmer of hope with one of these fantasy players on your team, but it has not been any sort of fantasy boon for any of these players. Maybe with the exception of DJ Moore, he's been looking all right so far, or if you have the Bears defense, because they forced 4 turnovers on the Vikings. So if you somehow started the Bears defense, then wow, you have a little bit more insight than me or Tad do. Because yeah, I never would have picked the Bears defense today.
That is the only reason I watch Monday Night Football anymore. Like unless it's like that Chiefs-Rams games years ago in Mexico City, or maybe the one that was supposed to be played in Mexico City. I always get those confused. But like, unless it's a marquee matchup like that, most of the time I just like kind of keep track of it. But God knows if it comes down to one player, I'm glued to that television screen and I do not do any work. And Tuesdays is like a movie day for my students.
Yeah, I think that game was supposed to be in Mexico City, but I think there's like a lot of congestion, I think. So it was a lot of like smog and stuff like that. So they ended up not doing it. And
that's right, because they kept cutting back to the bar in Mexico City. That's right. I forgot about that.
So I think the game ended up being played in LA, if I remember correctly. So, but yeah, that ended up being a local game here. But so Tad, it was a good week off, but yeah, it's nice to be back here. We're giving you our week 13 waiver wire picks. And obviously, as usual, we're going to go through our week 12 injury report. Just really quick before we get into all that, Tad, I have to ask it, even though I know how it went, but just how's your Thanksgiving?
It was fine. I love my students very, very much, but they are walking petri dishes. And one of them, it was funny, actually. I found out today, several teachers got taken out with this over Thanksgiving, is what we are now assuming is it was an upper respiratory infection, because we all tested negative for COVID, but it was so bad. We were like, how? And so the decision not to record last week was made before I got sick. Thank God it was made, though, because I sounded like, if you're wondering, like, what's wrong with his voice? I sounded like Christian Bale's Batman all week last week. All week. So, yeah, I got to spend it, chilling in my apartment with Cap. But overall, it was good. At least I had some good football to watch.
That is true. We did have some good games on Thursday for sure. So, yeah, that's unfortunate that you were sick, but it's
Teach
very
your
fortunate
kids to
that you
cover their
didn't have.
mouths.
But it's very fortunate you didn't have COVID for what? That would have been the 4th time you would have had it.
Honestly, I think it would have been the 5th.
Oh my lord! Just I don't know how you have like a magnet for that. It's just insane, man.
4? I'm not good at math.
It just, but all right. It sounds like you're on the mend here. So yeah, that's great that you had a relaxing week off. Obviously, there. Originally, obviously, Tad, we were planning to travel home, but obviously, with your health issues, it was better not to infect your family.
Yeah. Decided to be a good Samaritan like that.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, we're back at it here. So let's get into it, Tad. Here we got our week 12 injury report, but before we get into that, we definitely need to get into our sponsors here, our wonderful sponsors, because I don't know about you, Tab, but I definitely made some bets over the Thanksgiving Day slate of games, as well as the Sunday NFL action. Fortunately, didn't win as I have in the past, but it's still a lot of fun. It's very easy to do. So partner with our good friends at Underdog Fantasy, because, I mean, all you need to do is pick player props across all the major sports in the United States here. You got the NFL, you got the NBA, you got NHL going on right now, you got college football going on. We're heading into championship weekend this weekend. So, I mean, that should be a lot of fun to bet on for sure. You got some boxing, you got some MMA. I mean, just you name the sport, you can bet on it with Underdog Fantasy. And all you got to do, Tad, I mean, it's super simple. You've been using this tool too, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Pick between 2 to 5 different player props. I mean, it could be anything from, James Harden over under 2.5 turnovers. It could be, Brock Purdy over 245.5 passing yards over under. I mean, it's just like all these different player props. All you got to do is pick between 2 and 5 of them. If you decide to do more picks, you get more money of your return as far as your investment. You do less, you obviously get less, but it's just a fun way to sort of get into the action, and that works across all 50 states here. It's a lot of fun, and we definitely need to give you our promo code to get in on the action, because our folks at Underdog Fantasy want to double up your initial deposit of up to $500, at least $10. All you got to use our promo code DESAI, DESAI. And like I said, you can double up your initial deposit of $10 or more up to $500. So, I mean, Ted, if you deposit $500, Underdog Fantasy will match that dollar for dollar. So they'll match that $500. So you'll have $1,000 worth of betting that you could do on the Underdog Fantasy platform. And I mean, it's quick, it's easy to get into. The website, the web page is easy to use. If you want to download the app is very easy to use, but get in the action. It's a lot of fun. We're going to be having a lot of fun, especially with the playoffs looming here. Like I said, college football bowl championship weekend is happening this weekend. The NBA season, the NBA midseason tournament. Like, I mean, there's a lot you could be betting on. Why not do it with Underdog Fantasy? Once again, use our promo code DESAI, DESAI, and double up on your initial deposit of at least $10 or more, up to $500. Underdog will match every dollar. So, yeah.
No, they're a fantastic partner, and I just gotta say, I find this partnership so funny, but it also goes to show what great partners they are. We tell you how to take their money. Like most of the time, when you partner up with a gambling site or a company, it's mostly just like, hey, check out this site. But they were totally cool with the segment idea of like, all right, sure, and it's because they are so generous, especially with that offer. That's great. 500.
Mm-hmm. Up to 500. Yep, up to 500.
Generous,
Exactly.
simple, very, very good website, easy to navigate, unlike some other certain companies I will not name. So guys, go check them out, because they have just been amazing supporters of ours for the past, we're almost near a month now, if not over.
It's been about a month. Yeah, exactly.
It's been a damn good month. So be sure to check out Underdog Fantasy. Use that promo code DESAI. Once again, I got to do this every episode just as a shout out to my mom. That's D as in David, E, S as in Sam, AI.
Yeah. Definitely go use their platform. It is fantastic. Get it on some fun fantasy action for sure. So, all right, Ted, now we sort of got all of the, formalities out of the way. Let's get into the sort of meat of the episode here. Let's get into our week 12 injury report. Not as many injuries to lay out here. There's nothing super significant, but I think there's one team that unfortunately took...
not a lot of people got laid out.
No, but yeah, I think two teams unfortunately suffered the brunt of it because we got two injuries that we need to deal with both of those teams. So we're gonna start with one of those teams. That's the Cleveland Browns. They're dealing with two injuries here. The first one is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, their starting quarterback.
Oh yeah, no, I saw that the Broncos killed a guy.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. He took
Where'd you get it, Triton?
He suffered a big hit in the game against the Denver Broncos. His stats are alluded to there. He was removed from the game shortly afterwards. It was ruled that he had a concussion. Browns will now have to wait and see whether DTR can suit up this week. He is in the concussion protocol. Will he be able to play this weekend? We really don't know. It's still very early in the practice week to figure out whether he's going to be able to play. If he can't play, then we'll have to see PJ Walker, who has started a couple games for the Browns earlier this season. And if it's not him, we may see the reemergence of Joe Flacco in Cleveland.
I saw that he went to Cleveland, but I didn't see if he signed or not.
Yeah, he is on the practice squad. He was not active.
Please.
He was not active for the game over the weekend, but I bet you if there's sort of any sort of news here where DTR is just, trending towards not playing, I bet you they will activate him for this game. They may go with PJ Walker because he has more familiarity with the offense, but we may see Joe Flacco in that offense sometime soon if it's sort of a serious injury for DTR. Just a little bit of a note here. The Cleveland Browns play the Los Angeles Rams this weekend, so take that for what you want. They came away with a good win against the Arizona Cardinals over the weekend, so they're trending in the right direction. They're trying to fight for that very last playoff spot, especially with the Niners beating the Seahawks on Thanksgiving. This sort of opens the door a little bit for the Rams to sort of possibly make a push as long as they keep things going pretty strong for their team there. So the other injury I want to get to, Ted, before I sort of pass to you here to get your thoughts here, is just Amari Cooper. Their big pass weapon in the passing game here. He took a shot to the ribs in the game against the Denver Broncos as well. Removed from the game. He came away with that injury in the fourth quarter. So he played majority of the game, but just unfortunately missed the rest of the game. This could be a factor. So they took some x-rays, obviously. It came back negative. Obviously, we're going to have to see how the practice week goes. He should be able to possibly tough it out and play this weekend against the Rams. But in case he can't go, that's a pretty serious hit to your passing game, especially when you're having issues at the quarterback position. You kind of need a reliable piece of the passing game that you can sort of go to on a frequent basis. So if he's not playing, that sort of takes a hit for that passing offense. Overall, I think will take a hit then, obviously. In his place, Elijah Moore saw a lot of targets, but we also saw the rookie Cedric Tillman get very involved in that offense as well, especially with some of those backups. They may have more familiarity with the third and fourth string guys, i.e. a Cedric Tillman, maybe a David Bell, a former rookie out of Purdue. Maybe he'll get more involved. So we'll see about that. But just, if Amari Cooper can't go, as well as DTR not being able to go, this is going to be very interesting for the Browns offense. Their defense, we already know, is so good. But if their offense is not able to play to any sort of level, that just spells a really they're going to hit a downward trend, and it's just not going to be good for this Browns team, overall. So what are your thoughts on the Browns? Just how do you feel about the potential of a PJ Walker and or Joe Flacco? And then also, how do you feel about the backups for Cleveland as far as the receiver position?
I think that, it was weird because I actually still like the Browns offense going into this Broncos game. In fact, I started David Njoku on my main team. He ended up having a solid, I think it was 8.5 points for me. Not amazing, but for a tight end, I will take it. Amari Cooper made some good catches. Jerome Ford had some good runs. It was just okay, kind of what we expected they're leveling out due to the drop in talent after losing Deshaun Watson, but they're still fantasy relevant. And then the second DTR went down, I was like, okay, now it's a risky play. And then Amari Cooper got hurt. I'm like, okay, no, I'm not touching him. I don't even care if Amari Cooper plays because if he does, I don't trust him to be 100%. And so then teams will probably be able to shut him down, which means they'll be able to spread out more of their players rather than putting most of the attention on him. So when it comes to his backups, I know he's not technically a backup receiver, but again, the only guy I'm trusting here is David Njoku, and that's just because the other tight end on my roster is Dallas Goedert. And I'm not dropping him especially because his return is upcoming. So but I still have faith in Njoku, because it does seem like the more limited this passing game gets, the more they kind of depend on him for their short yardage situations. I think that will go up. Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt, depends on the situation, man. That's a risky play. The Rams defense has really stepped it up the last couple of weeks, and so they're not the cupcake they were at the start of the season. Shows how long the season is. God, I hope we see Joe Flacco. That'd be so funny. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if this is real. I should preface with that, but I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. Apparently, someone was on a flight to Cleveland, and then they got a picture of Flacco walking on the plane, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Just wait for the news tomorrow."
I think I saw that. I think I remember seeing that on social media.
But that was just a tryout. I did not know they saw. I gotta look up what number he picked. But yeah, no, I mean, I just think in general, like the more this Brown season, it's so weird. I was legitimately shocked when I saw their record. I think it's now 7-4, but that's still pretty good because this has been a wild season for them. I thought they were Vikings-esque with their record. So I want to say like this Cleveland season falling apart, but this does feel like kind of the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I think it's just when you speak about that record, it's just because their defense has just been so elite this season.
Myles Garrett was hobbled too. He didn't leave the game, but he was hobbled the entire game.
That's great that you bring that up because, especially like we're talking about with this Cleveland defense being so playing at such a high level. If they were to miss a guy like Myles Garrett, now your defense is taking a hit, and that just spells a lot more trouble for the offense, which is obviously struggling right now. Now you're dealing with injuries on the offense too, so just this could, like I said, this could be sort of the turn of the end for the Browns this season, unfortunately. And we'll see about Myles Garrett. He's saying that he felt a pop in his shoulder, so I don't know whether that's a good thing, whether that's a bad thing. I'm not sure, but obviously we'll see how that trends over the course of this week.
How in the world would that be a good thing?
It maybe avoided a serious injury. Like I really don't know, but it's just like obviously we'll see how this practice week goes, and we'll see whether he'll be able to play through it, sort of thing. So just I don't know, but just overall, it's not a good sign when you start player. Here's a pop in his shoulder, so I agree with it. Greg, I agree with you there, but we'll see how it all trends. But just it's not looking for the Browns. It's hard to trust them in fantasy. I agree with you there, where it's just like regardless of who's playing, it's just hard to just. Consistency. That's the biggest thing that you want. Is just like that's the hard thing that you sort of rely on there. Is just consistency from this offense. So I don't know how to feel about it. I'm probably not trusting the Browns offense right now. Maybe a little bit of the running game with Jerome Ford. Like you said, he was able to break off a lot of good runs every so often there against the Broncos. So against the Rams, though, that is a tougher run defense. So we'll see how that all plays out. But
Aaron Donald's going to kill a guy.
It's very possible. It's very possible. All right, Ted, let's get to the next guy, next team. Like I said, that suffered 2 serious injuries. They're both at the wide receiver position. So that's why this is pretty significant. And we're talking about the New Orleans Saints. So they have injuries to their 2 starting receivers here. Rashid Shaheed suffered an injury in their game against the Atlanta Falcons. And also, unfortunately, Ted, this is for you. Chris Olave suffered an injury in that game.
That one was weird. That was weird, but we'll touch on that in a bit.
Yeah, so let's get to the Rashid Shaheed injury first. It seems like, based on what head coach Dennis Allen said, he suffered the injury early in the game on one of their first drives, but he tried to play through it and see if he could sort of fight through the pain. But then eventually in the second quarter, he dove for a catch and sort of just aggravated it more. He came off the field very frustrated. He was visibly through his helmet. He went to the blue medical tent. They evaluated him. They took him back to the locker room, and he didn't come back into the game. They're saying it's a leg injury. It is a quad injury. That's what we're looking at. So it's not sure exactly whether he'll be able to play this week. But I mean, leg injuries, when you're a receiver, you kind of depend on that. So I mean, we'll see how that will sort of, work itself out over the course of the week. But there's a potential that he may not be able to play this week when they play the Detroit Lions. And then let's get to the bigger name here, Tad. Chris Olave suffered a concussion in the third quarter after landing hard. He tried to make a catch on the sidelines, but then he got tackled out of bounds. He didn't make the catch, unfortunately, because he did get 2 feet in bounds, but then he landed on the back of his head, on his helmet. And so, he was taken out of the game. He was also taken to the blue medical tent for evaluation for a concussion. They eventually took him to the locker room as well, and he was removed from the game. Now he'll go through the concussion protocol. We'll see exactly whether he'll be able to play this weekend against the Lions, but really just depends on how he goes through the concussion protocol, obviously. But just, Dad, we're talking about this Cleveland Browns offense sort of having some difficulties and just whether we could trust them. Now I'm not sure if we could trust the Saints offense, at least for 1 week, because you have to look at this here where Michael Thomas is already on the IR with the knee injury. Now you got Chris Olave in the concussion protocol. You got Rashid Shaheed possibly in danger of missing this game with a quad injury. So in that game against the Falcons, Tad, at one point they were throwing out the likes of Lynn Bowden Jr.,
naturally,
Keith Kirkwood,
of course,
and Taysom Hill at the tight end position.
Yeah, our boy.
And the rookie A.T. Perry. So, I mean, Taysom Hill's done some good things. I mean, I will say that, he's sort of been used as that sort of like, utility guy, throwing some passes, running the ball, catching some passes out of the backfield too. But just, Lynn Bowden and Keith Kirkwood. I mean, I've heard their names a couple of times, but it's usually just a very flash in the pan sort of situation. And the rookie A.T. Perry has scored a couple of times this season, but just once again, it's just like, I don't know if you could depend on these guys over the course of an entire game, especially coming against a Detroit Lions team that obviously suffered a big loss on Thanksgiving after a lot of people had them as the favorite for them to take a really good stranglehold in the NFC North. But unfortunately, they weren't able to win on Thanksgiving. And Ted, you're the one who called it. You texted me. You're just like, because we obviously do our DraftKings contest every year. We always do a Thanksgiving contest. And I was surprised. I was like, I'm surprised you didn't pick anybody in the Detroit Green Bay game. And you notoriously said, and I'll pass it to you here to tell me what you said.
I said, I don't trust any Packer, and the Lions always choke on Thanksgiving.
And what did they do?
My father is a Lions fan. I've been forced to watch it for 28 years now. This was probably the first year that I did not have to watch it, but I still did.
Yeah, and I expected them to actually play better, especially the way the season was going. But nope, they absolutely fell into that exact same trap that you sort of, expected with the Lions, where you said that they were going to choke, and they absolutely did. So, it's going to be interesting. They may come a little bit angry coming this weekend, trying to sort of regain some sort of lead in that NFC North. But just, I don't know how I feel about the Saints passing attack. I don't know how I feel about Derek Carr then without those weapons as well. And just, very similar to the Browns offense. It's just like, I don't know if I could trust these guys heading into the weekend. But Tad, what are your thoughts on the Saints passing offense and the offense overall?
So thank you for adding context to that, because from my perspective, as our very loyal listeners and watchers know, I watch Sunday if it's not the Colts game, I don't have a single game on. I'm always red zone up until Sunday Night Football. So I was actually thrilled with the first half because Olave was having a massive, massive first half. He finished the first 2 quarters with 14.8 fantasy points. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there like, this is great. This is going to keep happening. And then they kind of mentioned just very briefly, they being Scott Hansen, very briefly mentioned in the third quarter, by the way, Chris Olave not in on this drive. I was like, wait, what? And so I was just like, okay, all right. I was just like, I don't know what's happening. And then a couple more Saints drives happened, and we were into the fourth quarter. I'm like, where the hell is Olave? And I had to look it up on Twitter. And so I did not know that he went to the blue tent. They did not show that on Red Zone because they rarely do. They like to pretend injuries don't exist. So that adds a lot of very much needed context. But like I said, luckily he finished with a pretty good game for me. So I'm happy. I hope he gets better for very, very selfish reasons. Where does this leave the Saints? If, let's assume doomsday scenario, both of them are out. Okay. I think Taysom Hill's value basically stays the same, because the problem is his versatility is shrunk, I guess is the right word. It's not as effective.
Yeah.
If there are less weapons or legitimate weapons, sorry, backups, outside, they're going to focus on him more because they know, this offense can run through him. So but I think just the amount of attention he's going to get from the Saints gives him a little bit of fantasy value, risky, but still understandable start at flex, possibly tight end as well, because for some goddamn reason. I'll tell you what, though. I think Alvin Kamara, and I swear to God, I'm not just being biased when I say this, Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller, their value is interesting in that situation. A doomsday scenario where all their starting receivers are out. I could see them starting to get a little tricky with the running backs. And Kamara has had a redemption-like season so far, at least in the fantasy football realm. And Kendrick Miller, I mean, and this shows that I'm not biased. He hasn't had like a phenomenal rookie season like I was really hoping he was, but he has shown some flashes of good explosiveness. So if they're forced to kind of get creative with this offense, I could see him playing more of a role. Now, I'm not saying start him, but I'm saying that could be an interesting type of thing, especially as if the Saints start losing a grip or start falling behind in this race for the NFC South. If Miller has a good game here, maybe the Saints say, okay, let's see what we got in about 3 or 4 weeks, and he starts getting a bulk of the carries. It's not implausible. Miller could be an interesting stash, but I never was touching Derek Carr in fantasy. He's just been too inconsistent. So really, Taysom Hill, risky, but sure, still start him. I say keep Alvin Kamara still in your starting rosters.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It's hard to see just how this offense is going to look without some of their star receivers and just going with some of these backups. It's like maybe they'll look good. Maybe Derek Carr will sort of like, MacGyver his way through his offense and come away with the victory and makes your, fantasy roster.
What Derek Carr is known for, improvising.
I know. Exactly. Like it's a big if, but it could happen sort of thing here. But just, it's hard for me to trust anybody besides Taysom Hill is probably the most trustworthy other receiving options there. Alvin Kamara, if you have him rostered, he's a good start as well. And then, if you want to go for like maybe a dart throw, maybe a deeper sleeper, then I agree. Kendrick Miller could possibly get some good, supplemental work, but he's very effective with that where he could possibly score a touchdown, and lead to, a good, maybe double-digit day for you. So, but it's still very like risky play there. So it's like, if you have better options, then don't go with the Saints offense if you can avoid it, sort of thing.
What's Lance Moore up to?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad guy to call for sure.
Marquise Colson,
Robert Beacham. How about that one?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm trying to think who's the number. Traquan Smith.
Traquan Smith's a good one. He was actually on the roster earlier this year, if I remember correctly.
Was he actually? Oh, wow.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Then they released him. So, maybe we'll give him a call.
Yeah, I'm about to say redemption time.
He has more familiarity with the offense compared to some of the other guys we mentioned. So it's
if we call that signing, I'm going to lose it. That'd be
pretty good.
That'd be the most out there prediction we've ever gotten right on this show.
All right, Ted, there's only one more that I want to get to, but this isn't particularly an injury. It's definitely not an injury, actually, but Mac Jones.
Oh, well, no. Hold on. No, this was an injury to his pride and more importantly to his career. I mean, you thought I was joking when I said the Broncos killed DTR. No, Mac Jones just like killed his own career. Like, so bad.
Yeah,
so bad.
I mean, it's really rough.
Did you watch that game?
Why would I watch this game?
Well, see, but this is why I love Red Zone, because they only showed me the parts that were worth watching. There was a play, I want to say it was third down. It was like 3rd and 5, and Mac Jones like moves around the pocket. I'm like, oh shit, all right, Mac Jones, this is what they've been waiting to see. And he like rockets it downfield, straight into triple coverage.
Oh God.
And that was just the moment I was like, nope, you're toast. I'm like, I think he actually got benched on the next drive. And yeah. So anyway, sorry, carry on about his misery.
So not a physical injury, I should say. Emotional, sure, by the way Ted laid it out there, but his in-depth play pretty much led to him being benched in that game against the New York Giants. He played the entire first half. They brought in Bailey Zappi to start the second half. Ted, these are the first 6 possessions under Mac Jones in that first half. They punted. Then they punted again. Then he threw an interception. Then they punted again. Then he threw another interception.
Yep.
And then they punted again. So 4 punts and 2 interceptions. I mean, that's obviously going to lead to a benching. Bailey Zappi looked good at first. He went 5 for 5. He led the game-tying touchdown, but then he started to struggle the second half as well. So as of now, obviously questions have been asked to Bill Belichick, who's going to be the starting quarterback. He is obviously neglected to make a favor in any sort of direction, whether it's Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones. Exactly. He also probably doesn't know because he's like, who's going to give me the better shot to win? I really don't know. This is a rock and a hard place sort of situation here. So we don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be this weekend, but just based on the way that the Patriots have been playing, once again, it's just hard to trust this passing offense, especially we thought the changes were going to be implemented. Bill O'Brien coming from Alabama. He is obviously better as a coordinator and a coach compared to being a GM, which led to him being fired from the Texans, obviously. But yeah, he's not making this work either. Like, I mean, I don't know whether it's him, whether it's the quarterback. I think it's more the quarterback.
Yeah.
But this is a mess in New England. Obviously, they lost Kendrick Bourne a couple weeks ago for the entire season, so they lost one of their dependable weapons in the passing offense as well. So they're going with Demario Douglas, and Juju Smith-Schuster has not been looking the same since his one season.
Devontae Parker is still there, which I found
Devontae Parker has also not looked since his one good season in Miami as well. So I mean, it's just like, this is a complete mess. Hunter Henry has not been living up to expectations. Mike Gesicki, obviously coming over from Miami, he has not looked good as well. So I mean, it is big issues there for the offense there in New England. They play the Chargers this weekend, who, they're reeling after a tough loss to the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday night. So I mean, they need to get some wins together to stay alive.
No, they don't need to get their wins together. They need to get their shit together.
Well, that's a nicer way to. My way was a nicer way to say it. Yours was obviously the more blunt way to.
I was about to say mine's the more honest one.
Exactly.
I'd be willing to bet LAFB Network guys would agree with me on that one.
So they need to string some wins together to stay alive in the AFC playoff picture. So they should be ready to go for a fight here against the Patriots. And I'm not looking like it's not looking like it's going to be a fair contest for the Patriots. So what do you make of this whole Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi situation? Like, I could care less, but I mean,
I don't really care.
I remember you were a big proponent for Bailey Zappi.
I was just about to say
you're like, this could possibly pan out, but he hasn't been looking the part lately either.
Well, okay, to his credit though, and this is again why you watch Red Zone, because at the most random times, these games can get real good all of a sudden, and it's because Bailey Zappi actually led the team down the field with time expiring, and the Patriots kicker missed it.
Yeah.
To, I believe, tie it. I don't think it was for the win. I think it was to send them into overtime. But regardless, Zappi got him down there. It wasn't a hard field. It was like a 45-yard field goal or something like that. It wasn't like a ridiculous length. So I think the only reason I have any remote interest in the Patriots is like, can Zappi cement himself as a career backup? I think his chances of like, hey, this guy could be a like sneaky good starter, I think that's done. I was joking, obviously, but like in all seriousness, if Mac Jones is on a roster next year, I will be shocked. An NFL roster. I think he is perfectly suited for the XFL. Come on over. You'll be fun for it. But he looks bad, man. Like Zach Wilson's getting a lot of hate. Mac Jones should be getting the same amount. I'm not saying Zach Wilson's better. That is one of my all-time worst draft evaluations ever. But both of them just suck. Both of them are in the same division. This is terrible. I don't trust anyone on that Patriots offense when it comes to fantasy whatsoever. I would also like to say one more thing, courtesy of our partners at Underdog. I would have gone 2 for 2 this past weekend. Ezekiel Elliott ran for 46 yards, and I had him under, what was it, 35?
It was 30 something, yeah, but he surpassed it by like 10 yards,
which is like his second time doing that this season. Like, which shows you how freaking inconsistent this. I don't get them. I hate them. Fire Bill. You want to talk about bad Bill O'Brien is the GM was. My God, Bill Belichick GM not looking great.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of overshadowing Mac Jones's play. Is just like, is this tarnishing the legacy of Bill Belichick? Where just like he went from such a good career with with the Tom Brady, excuse me. As soon as Tom Brady left, it's like we're seeing that Patriots team now that we're seeing, and it's just like maybe it was all Tom. It's just like it's sort of like that's the best thing you sort of come to that conclusion where it's just like, yeah, it was Tom doing it for Belichick as opposed to Belichick doing it for Brady. So we'll see, but it is an absolute mess in New England, and I completely 100% agree with you. That's just you can't trust anybody in this New England offense because it's just to be a Patriots fan, it's
Bears won 12-10, by the way.
Oh my Lord!
I wonder if that's scorigami. That's probably not scorigami.
No, I don't think so. I think it's happened before.
I've never seen it.
But so that's a bit of a dud game. But Ted, it's actually funny that you bring that up because that's the conclusion of the injury report here. But that sort of leads into our Week 13 picks. But before we get to that, definitely want to lay out the teams that are on a bye week this week because we have 6 teams on a bye week this week. I think
I actually don't know this. You're revealing this to me, so I'm excited.
Yeah, we have 6 teams on a bye week this week. I think we talked about this like maybe a month ago. It was sort of like a bye-mageddon where we had
we got another bye-mageddon?
So this is the same amount of teams. We have 6 teams on a bye this week, and both the teams playing on Monday night, those are on a bye. So we got the Bears and the Vikings. We also got the Raiders. We also got the Bills. We also got the Giants and also the Ravens. So, I mean, there's a good mix of teams there.
And don't forget Raiders. That offense is looking kind of rejuvenated now. There's a lot of interesting fantasy options there. Now that's kind of, buy me again part 2.
Yeah, there's some good options here. Obviously, you got the Bills with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, James Cook. A lot of people have him rostered. The Raiders you talked about with Devontae Adams, Michael Mayer. Yeah, Dalton Kincaid has been a revelation ever since the Dawson Knox injury, so he's not going to be playing this week. The Raiders got Devontae Adams. You obviously got Daniel Carlson, if you got Russell as a kicker. Michael Mayer's been a pretty good tight end for you guys. The Bears, I mean, Justin Fields, maybe some of the running backs. DJ Moore
after this, after tonight.
The Vikings, I mean, there's a little bit with the Josh Dobbs as a streaming option, but I'm wondering if the magic is starting to wear out because, I mean, he looked bad this week against the Bears, but I think the bye week can hopefully alleviate that. You obviously got Jordan Addison. Justin Jefferson's going to be coming back after the bye week. That's the report so far. The Giants, Saquon, I guess. That's probably the only one I can think of right now.
I traded for Saquon like 2 weeks ago. It's so weird. He goes off for like 30 points against Washington. And I'm like, and then he's playing the Patriots, like 7 points.
Yeah, no, that was not a great. And then obviously you got the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Gus Edwards, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely instead of Mark Andrews, obviously, and the kicker Justin Tucker, Coleman? And the Ravens defense.
Keontae Coleman? Is that the new guy's name? Keontae Coleman is the Florida State receiver.
Yeah, Keaton Mitchell. Keaton Mitchell,
thank you. I knew it was KO.
But yeah, obviously you got the Ravens defense and of course Justin Tucker, who a lot of people drafted as well. So yeah, lots of big names on a bye week this week. So Tad, let us get to our week 13 picks here. Give me 3 of your favorite picks this week. So we don't have to go through every position, but just give me 3 of your favorites.
So if you are a follower of ours on Twitter and Instagram, which by the way, you can find both of our handles and the show's handle right below on the ticker. That's the first time I ever nailed the timing on that. I'm so proud of myself right now. Anyway, you will be shocked by this pick because we said to bench him last week. I'm not going to say great call, but I think we called it right. He scored 16 points against the top-rated pass defense, and that is Russell Wilson. Now, he has been not everybody, but a lot of people have been properly acknowledging his better play this year. With that said, it's not quite translating over the fantasy realm. Like, he's playing better on the field, but he is very rarely ever topped 20 points this season. But you know what, Emmer? He was this close to doing it. Because I don't know, were you watching that game?
I was watching some of that game, yes.
Okay, did you see the Jerry Jeudy? It feels cruel to call it a drop.
Yes. No, he didn't get a lot of help, Russell Wilson.
Plus his arm got pulled back. So anyway, so Russell Wilson could have gone over 20 against, once again, the number 1 ranked passing defense in fantasy football. And then here's the kicker, though. You look at his schedule moving forward. This is crazy. They play the 21st ranked Texans defense. That makes it look like, that makes CJ Stroud look like a hero every time because he can somehow put up 35 points on a consistent basis. I hate him. And then, so after that, in no particular order, they play the Chargers twice. Then they play New England, and we just talked about how bad they are. Then Detroit. That one's a little bit more iffy, but they're inconsistent, so who knows what to expect. And then they play... Sorry, I got so excited, I lost my spot. Oh, they play the Las Vegas Raiders. And we've all seen, despite that offense is looking much better, that defense still very much suspect. So I think that is perfect timing with that schedule as well, especially if you have a quarterback that goes down over the next couple of weeks. You have a guy that is consistent and has a very easy schedule, especially when you get into the playoffs. So I actually like Russell Wilson as a pickup here.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think you've laid it out perfectly where it's like he's playing better as far as like the Broncos are concerned, but as far as fantasy managers are concerned, it's like he's sort of hovering between like being streamable and like, maybe you're better off finding another option. But like you said, laying out the schedule that they have, I think they have some favorable opponents coming down the stretch here, especially if you need a guy potentially as a backup as the fantasy playoffs roll around. Then, I mean, Russell Wilson could be a pretty good guy to sort of fill in as that potential backup for you as you're sort of making your way into the playoffs and potentially through the playoffs as well. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is a good sign for Broncos fans that just like, the Peyton and Wilson sort of relationship is sort of working out and the offense is looking a little bit better. And I think just heading into year 2, I think you're finally going to see what we all were hoping for. Well, I think most people, I wouldn't say everybody, but I think a lot of people are sort of hoping that we'd see with, Dangerous going to Denver and being that guy for Denver, obviously. But just last year, it obviously wasn't the case. This year, it took a long time for it to finally get there, slow out of the gates. But now I think we're finally seeing that. And so, yeah, I think if Russell Wilson can finish the season as strong as he's playing right now, I think I like him as a good pick next year. And 100% it's good for Broncos fans next year. So, yeah, I like that pick. I like that pick for sure.
Don't ever use that nickname on this show again.
Dangerous.
I will kick you straight out of this stream.
All right, hit me with some of your other favorite picks here.
All right, well, George Costanza would not be a fan of this one because I am double dipping. So I think that.
I like that one.
Thank you. I was actually really proud.
That's a good one. I like that one.
So I picked this guy as a top pickup last week, but as we said before, that was just a graphic. I didn't get to talk about it. I want to talk about it because this guy, I traded for Christian Watson about a month ago now. And thinking that, okay, he's back, he's healthy, he'll be great. And he wasn't producing. Now he's kind of producing. He's very touchdown dependent. But before, he was posting up 3, 4, 5 points. I was like, what is happening? And because I knew it wasn't Dobbs, because Dobbs was also pretty touchdown dependent. I'm like, Who is taking all of his targets? My new man, Jayden Reed. This guy is good. He is if I'm not mistaken, he's the rookie out of Nevada, right? Or is he the second-year man out of Nevada?
He is a rookie, but he's not out of Nevada.
Really? Shit. See, I'm like, you can tell by my Keontae Coleman. I'm like all the info from last year's draft is getting pushed out as I prepare for this year's. Shit, hold on.
That's fair.
Louisville?
No.
Shit, I know.
You're trending in the right direction geographically, though.
Oh, is it? No, it's not. It's just go ahead.
Michigan State.
Oh, fuck. That's real bad. I was going to say Wake Forest is my next guess. Anyway.
Michigan State. He was a Spartan.
He plays well in green then, apparently. Because,
there you go, exactly.
I mean, you look at... so I told you to pick him up last week, and he put up 13 points against the Lions. Nothing that will blow you away, but a pretty respectable number, especially for a guy that was one of the more popular waiver wire pickups. But here's where I'm very encouraged with him is... that was his third straight game putting up more than 10 points. Not 10 points or more, so he didn't finish at 10. No, he's gone pretty high in the upper teens. The 2 games before that, 13 this game. So I think that he's probably the most consistent receiver on this Packers offense because, like I said, the other 2 are almost entirely touchdown dependent. Luke Musgrave is just too inconsistent at all.
Well, he's also on the IR still, so that's another reason not to.
Well, I mean, is his health? That means his health is inconsistent. Am I wrong?
I guess you're right.
And then
I guess got a technicality on that one.
See, I'll take it. So I actually really like it because you look at the Kansas City defense that they're playing next week. It's vulnerable. I'm not going to say it's. I'm about to sneeze on air for the second time ever. It's vulnerable, but it's not. Bad. So I think that he's a risky play against Kansas City. But again, looking ahead at the future schedule, the last 3 games of the Packers schedule are against Carolina, Minnesota, and we all just saw how the Minnesota defense did here. And and yes, I know that they played well tonight, but that was the exception, not the rule. The Bears. Those are 3 really bad defenses he's going against at the exact time that you needed him to show up in your championship. I think he is at the. How about this for a statement? I think he's a very safe flex play moving forward.
That's fair. So
right,
the emergence of Jayden Reed.
Go on mute while I sneeze.
Well, so you're saying that the emergence of Jayden Reed has led to the production for all the other Packers receivers to have suffer from shrinkage?
You got to do that while I'm trying to sneeze here.
I had to. I was sitting on that one. As soon as you gave me the George Costanza one, I was like, I have to go in this direction. I had to.
What is the age group of our viewership? Like that,
it's on Netflix. People, I'm pretty sure, are watching it.
Just go with your pick. Just go. Mine was better. Go.
You still owe me one more, but yeah, I'll get into some of my picks here as you're sort of sneezing or coughing.
Oh, dude, it's coming. It's gonna come right as I reach a peak moment too. God,
So I'm actually gonna go with one of your favorite guys, and that's Kenny Pickett, Tad, of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
my boy.
maybe, last weekend was a fluke. I mean, we'll see exactly how this is all going to play out. But I mean, maybe Matt Canada really was the issue. Like, I mean, people have been clamoring for him to get fired for so long.
Maybe.
And they finally had a very good offensive day, the Steelers offense. They're trying to stay in the playoff picture. I think their defense was obviously able to keep things in control, but just that offense, just, lack of just consistency, lack of just good play calling, whatever you want to call it. But just now we finally got to see what a good Steelers offense can look like. And you got Pickett, who threw for 278 passing yards. He had a completion percentage of 72.73%. These were both second best in his career. I know his career hasn't been that long, but it's still saying something that he put up these types of numbers right after Matt Canada got fired, right? He threw the ball 33 times, so he threw it for a good amount of times as well to lead to that high completion percentage. So it wasn't like, he went 10 for 15 or something like that, right? It's like he threw a good amount of times to lead to a good completion percentage. This is all against the Bengals, who have a pretty good defense as well. Divisional matchup, he still played well. I think this could carry over in a very good matchup against the Arizona Cardinals this week. We're sort of in that sort of like, they looked good a little bit with Kyler Murray returning, but now they're sort of regressing back to that team where it's just like, yeah, they're pretty much playing for a draft pick sort of thing. So it's like, I think this is a very good matchup that the Steelers can take advantage of. The Arizona defense is allowing the highest completion percentage in the league to opposing quarterbacks. They're allowing the 10th most passing yards in the league to opposing quarterbacks, and they're allowing the 4th most passing touchdowns in the league as well to opposing offenses. So I think Kenny Pickett, he could sort of have a back-to-back good performance. Even though he only got the yards last week, I bet you he could sort of find the end zone once or twice this weekend to make it more of a viable start, especially with some of those big-name quarterbacks being out on a bye week this week. Kenny Pickett, I think, could be a good streaming option against a very susceptible Cardinals defense.
Yep. I mean, you know me. I'm never going to say anything bad about my boy. Good pick. Good pick. Except for the double gloves. I'm not a fan of the double gloves. Just go for the left glove.
It's fair. It's fair. But it works for him. He seems to find a way to get it done for
true.
sure. So I'm going to go to the running back position here, Tad. And my God, I mean, we were sort of talking about our DraftKings contest that we do every single week. So we did one for Thanksgiving, obviously, but then we also did one for the Sunday slate of games. And you picked Kyren Williams, and my Lord, did he have himself a game?
He only cost like $5,000 as soon as I saw
exactly.
That.
He was an affordable option, and just his first game back. And you thought maybe he was just sort of going to ease into it. He'll have a good game, but not a great game. But dear Lord, this was a sensational game. I mean, he put up 40 fantasy points in DraftKings platforms, but I'm pretty sure it was something similar in all your respective fantasy leagues as well. But I mean, he was just a dynamite option out of the backfield as far as a runner. I think he had 143 rushing yards, if I remember correctly. Then he had 66 yards through the air, scored both touchdowns through the air as well. So I mean, he was an all-around threat. And sure, I'm lauding Kyren Williams here, but in conjunction, the team released Darrell Henderson Jr. earlier this week because they knew Kyren Williams was coming back. And so you thought that, the backup running back, Royce Freeman, might take a hit. But if anything, he actually looked good as a dual pace, a two-headed monster there for the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, Rams fans have always been clamoring that's like, they need to run the ball more. They need to run the ball more. And especially with Matthew Stafford dealing with injuries. I know Cooper Kupp was obviously dealing with some injuries as well. So it's like, if they could run the ball to take that pressure off the passing game, that's obviously going to be better for the offense. So it's like, obviously Kyren Williams had a great game. But you look at what Royce Freeman did in that game as well. Like, I mean, he was able to put up a really good game as well. He scored the only rushing touchdown of that game. I think he had 70 yards rushing on the ground. He had 3 less carries than Kyren Williams. I know Kyren Williams did more with those carries, but he had 16, and Royce Freeman had 13. So, I mean, it was still a pretty good split on the ground. Obviously, Kyren Williams got all the passing targets in the backfield as opposed to Royce Freeman, who got absolutely nothing. But I think just looking at that game, I think just translating over the course of the rest of the season, it's not all going to be Kyren Williams. I think we could see some good semblance of Royce Freeman as well, especially if you need a streaming option. I mean, this guy is widely available. He's only rostered in 19.3% of ESPN leagues and 13% of Yahoo leagues. So, I mean, it's like if you need a guy on this bye week, or once again, if you need sort of like a bench stash, especially as we get closer to the fantasy playoffs, Royce Freeman is a guy that I think is going to be heavily involved in his offense still. Yes, maybe not to the same extent as Kyren Williams, but as like a possible streaming flex option, you could do worse than Royce Freeman.
Yeah, I mean, you make a lot of good points. I think clearly more than you, I think he's a little bit more of a risky flex play because I need to see how the Rams do over the next like week or two. Not in terms of like, well, are they going to win? But in terms of, my only concern is the only reason Royce Freeman got all those carries because it was a blowout and because they didn't want to wear Kyren Williams out. Because if you were watching that game, I feel like, Kyren Williams would make a great run. Then you would see him on the sideline. It looks like me after I try to run about 100 feet where he's like, like he was clearly exhausted, which makes sense because Kyren Williams, on top of having those 16 rushing attempts, also had 6 catches for about 60 yards. So he was being used all over the field. I mean, of course he was exhausted. I'm not saying he should be ashamed of that. I should be ashamed of comparing myself to him. But I think that's one risk that you need to be aware of when going for him. But I think it's better than like what my pick was going to be. And we don't even need to discuss this, which is Chuba Hubbard, which is a much, much riskier pickup. So like you say, it is a risky pick, but you could always go riskier. So it's not bad, especially if you just want someone to kind of like finish out your bench with a little bit of potential there.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it's a little bit of the safer plays off the waiver wire, especially with lots of the guys being taken. Waiver wire is pretty thin right now. So yeah, with this guy being widely available, I think he could do some good, get you some good numbers on your fantasy roster if you need to stream him every so often for sure. So, all right, Ted, there's a tight end I want to get to as well before we get to your, I believe you have a streaming pick at the defense position here, but I want to get to this tight end position because I'm actually surprised. I think a lot of people would be surprised that I'm going to bring up this name, but he is only rostered in 41.9% of ESPN leagues and 48% of Yahoo leagues. So he's about like 50% available in a lot of leagues. And that's Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so it's like, you look at this guy.
He's
based on the season.
No. I like him moving forward, but yeah, exactly.
I think based on the season, it's obviously not too surprising. But obviously, if you look at like past seasons, this is a guy that's being drafted like as a top 10 tight end, and he's been performing at that level. And clearly, you can see that when this guy is healthy. With the game that he just had against the Bengals, he had 11 targets, caught 9 of those, and he had 120 receiving yards. He set a career high in receptions for him. He set a career high in receiving yards, and he was one shy of setting his career high in targets as well. So, I mean, this guy had a monster day against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think just the biggest thing is just he's been fully healthy now because he suffered an injury way back in week 1 against the 49ers. He was able to gut through it for a couple of weeks, but then unfortunately he suffered another injury that kept him out for pretty much majority of the season. Now he's back. Now he's fully healthy. Like we talked about with Kenny Pickett, the firing of Matt Canada seemed to sort of awaken something in his offense that's like, oh yeah, we can do stuff on offense with all the players that we have. Najee Harris, who we've talked about being just, absolutely a dud in this offense. He looked good in this offense too. So I mean, it's just like something has been unlocked in this the Steelers offense. Pat Freiermuth is healthy now, so I think he's going to look good for going forward. So if you could claim this guy off the waiver wire, like I said, if you're in those leagues that he's widely available, like I said, 41.9% rostered in ESPN leagues and 48% of Yahoo leagues. So if he's out there, like this is a good guy, exactly like Tad said, that will help you down the stretch because I think the Steelers offense is going to get a lot more consistent. I don't think they're going to have a repeat performance of last weekend against the Bengals every single week going forward, but it'll look a lot closer to it compared to lots of the dud weeks that we saw with Matt Canada running the show there. So yeah, I like Pat Freiermuth. He's a very dependable option, especially at the tight end position, which we've talked about so many times before, is a little bit of a weaker position to find waiver wires players for. But this late, if you could get a player of Pat Freiermuth's quality, 100% you need to go after it. Like clamor, like pay as much as you need to in the free agency bidding. If you're high on the waiver wire, like make this a priority ad. Like, I mean, just do whatever you can, but get this guy on your roster if he's available.
Sounds like a real man of steel to me.
All right, Tad, let's get to your defensive pick here for week 13. Who do you like?
This is a hot take. You ready for this? This is going to sound crazy. And here's the funny thing is it's the same tactic I used on the past 2 guys. And people may be like, is this all you do to pick at this point in the season? Yeah. Especially if I'm a playoff hopeful, which is weirdly at 5-7, I somehow still am. Man, I honestly think pick up the Falcons defense.
Interesting. Okay.
So
I'm guessing this is the matchup-based play. So who are they playing?
It is absolutely entirely that, but it's not just this weekend. Because let me walk you through their entire season. Right, they've had some stinkers there. They've only gone the negative once this season, so they're not terrible. But they're playing times where they dip below 5 as well, so they're very susceptible. Or so everyone thinks based off reputation. But you look at their best games this season, they've had a tough schedule, by the way. The only real, I don't even want to say bad offense. The only real, mid-tier offense that they've really played badly against was Washington. But Washington, that offense is so confusing. They can blow up at any time.
True.
So I think so. You go back and look at their entire season so far. They put up 11, they being the Falcons defense, put up 11 points against Carolina in week 1. 10 points was their next double-digit game against the Buccaneers. Then 9 points against Minnesota without Justin Jefferson. And then 11 points this past weekend against New Orleans. So when they face lower kind of tier offenses, they actually tend to do pretty well. Not blow you away like a 20-point performance the Miami Dolphins defense got me this week. But thank God for that pick 6. But you look at it now, this is the same tactic we've been using really, is they have the Jets and the legend himself, Tim Boyle. Is it Tim or Tom?
It's Tim. You got it right.
I don't know if you saw that stat, but I looked at his college stats. How in the world did this man make it in the NFL? His college stats are something like 3 touchdowns and 9 picks over 3 years.
Yeah, he's been bad on all levels, and just surprising the fact that he's starting here, and surprising that Aaron Rodgers brought him to New York too. I don't understand.
No, it's so weird. But anyway, so they should feast there. So they're a safe start next week. Then they play Tampa Bay again. So don't forget they put up 10 against Tampa Bay. I'll take 10 for my defense any week. Then they play Carolina again. Keep in mind, Carolina was 11 points in week 1. I think that actually may go up because now Bryce Young has been figured out. I will say I don't blame Bryce Young. And maybe this Carolina, have they announced who their interim coach is yet?
It's their special teams coordinator. I blanking on his name. I think it's Chris Tabor.
Okay. This offense is not going to all of a sudden take off like the Raiders are. So that's going to be great. Then Indy, a little bit of a risky play, but Gardner Minshew, usually good for a pick or 2 every game. It's really annoying. Then here's the thing. They play Chicago and then New Orleans again to close out their season. So those last 2 games are very, very good matchups. And the best part is you don't need to worry about dropping and adding defenses, especially in the playoffs. I hate doing that in the playoffs. I think that this is a defense that, and you got to remember, somehow because this division is absolute crap, the Falcons, are still in the division race. So you got a defense, as long as they don't.
If I last look, they're number 1. Right now they're leading the division.
Right. So
because they won.
They're still okay, but by a game. It's not like they're running away.
Doesn't matter. They're still leading it.
All right.
If the playoffs ended today, they would be division champions.
And then they would get killed in the playoffs. But anyway,
yes, they would. That's a separate story. That's a separate story.
This race is probably going to stay tight. Probably not between all 3 teams. I think one of these guys is, going to collapse at a certain point just because it feels like they're all frauds. But sorry, I thought you were disagreeing with me. No, but
I agree. They're
with a defense that feels like they're playing for something because they are. That's a highly motivated defense, which tend to perform better. So yes, it is a very risky play. Yes, I sound like a crazy man, but I'm telling you, the Falcons defense might be a sneaky good pickup moving forward. And keep in mind, the Jets, that whole streak starts next week. So you got to get them now. Because I promise you, after that Jets game next weekend, they're going to be the top, defense to go after on the waivers. And you're not going to get them next weekend.
Do you have the roster percentage for them right now?
I don't have the exact one, but it's about 30% last I checked, which was surprisingly high.
Yeah, that's not bad. So I'm going to close it out with our kicker for streaming options this week. I'm going to go with Matt Gay of the Indianapolis Colts, rostered in 48.7% of ESPN leagues and 21% of Yahoo leagues. The Colts are playing the Titans this week. They've already played earlier this week, back in week 5. Gay kicked 3 field goals in that game, as well as 2 extra points, which totaled to 12 fantasy points. Nick Folk, on the other hand, also had 12 fantasy points in that game. So I think if you go with either kicker in this position here, you stream them. Either option would be really good. I think this game could lead to a lot of field goal opportunities for both kickers, like I said. So I think this could be a really good game, especially like we talked about with all those teams on a bye week. You got Justin Tucker of the Ravens on a bye week, Daniel Carlson of the Raiders on a bye week, Cairo Santos of the Bears on a bye week, and Tyler Bass of the Buffalo Bills on a bye week. So lots of kickers on a bye week. If you need a streamer kicker, I like Matt Gay against the Tennessee Titans this week for sure. So, Tad, that'll close out our episode here of Week 13 waiver wire picks. We did a little bit of the Week 12 injury report, but it's nice to be back. Like I said, we had the week off, so it's just nice to be back in the saddle here, giving everybody our information here. But like we talked about at the very beginning of this episode, even though we didn't give you an episode through the podcast or through YouTube here, we gave you all our graphics on social media. So make sure you're following us on our social media handles. You got us on Twitter. You got me at Decide23. You got Tad at Decide94. Got the show handle Anthony Decide Guys. And of course on Instagram, Anthony Decide Guys as well. We posted all of our graphics across both platforms. So we got you covered with our picks. And of course, like, interact with us in case you have a personal question that you needed to get set. Like with the Thanksgiving games, it's like, do you trust, a certain receiver over another? Or like, how do you feel about your starts and decisions, taking the waiver wire? Like, we would have responded to you. Tad was at home. I was at home too. We were just with our families. And so, hey, we don't need to spend every waking minute with our family. We could answer a quick message from you on social media.
My mom watches the show. Can you not?
Okay, you need to spend every waking minute, but I think I can get a little bit of a reprieve every so often and answer some quick questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media. We're here to help you win your fantasy leagues. And I think most importantly, Tad, I say this every single episode, avoid fantasy punishments, because we don't want you at a Denny's. We don't want you, with the sandwich board, ringing a bell on the main street or whatever, everything like that, doing the hot sauce wing challenge or whatever, soda roulette, doing the suicide drink with putting a bunch of stuff in there. So like, we don't want you doing any of that. So make sure you're listening to us. Make sure you're asking us for our advice so you can avoid all that. And like I said, if you're the lucky place to be in contention for a fantasy title, we're going to help you win that fantasy title as well. So guys, make sure you subscribe or listen to your podcast, whether that's at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Listen to the LAFB Network website as well. Subscribe where listen to your podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel so it's always up to date with our YouTube channels, YouTube channel videos as well. And make sure you're supporting our parent network at LAFB Network. They're giving you a lot of great content when it comes to the Rams and the Chargers at the professional level, and the Bruins and the Trojans at the college level. So lots of great content coming from them. Make sure you're supporting them, because without them, there would be no us. But guys, to everybody who's already interacting with us, who's watching the videos, who's listening to the podcast, who's, like I said, interacting with us on social media, guys, anything and everything that you're doing to support us, we really can't thank you enough.
And you know what, guys, just give you a little bit of background peek into how everything works is our CEO, Ryan Dyrud, gave us an offer. Hey, do you guys want to take over the company's main or old, I guess, YouTube channel? Hasn't been active for a while. We think that'd be a good move. And Murray and I discussed it. We experimented with it a little bit, and then we're like, all right, fine, we'll go ahead and do it. And then we got a message from him, it feels like last week, but it was probably 2 weeks ago at this point, where he commented. He was like, dude, subscribers are going up, viewer counts going up. Like this was a good move. And it was nice for us to take credit for it, but really it was you guys showing your support, coming out, looking at our new YouTube shorts, which come out every Saturday morning for the next, I want to say 6 Saturdays. Maybe 5. Longer than that. We could do playoff ones.
We could go to the playoffs. Yeah. Ooh. It's not limited to football too. Maybe we'll cross into basketball. Who knows?
I would be so down for that. So anyway, as long as you guys keep watching, we'll keep making great content for you, because we love you guys. We appreciate you guys. And that's why I end every show by saying, please stay safe, everyone.